MLB slate. Then we're going to transition it over to NFL. In the future, we'll probably do the 6 p.m. MLB and then the 6:45 NFL hour, as for much longer as we have. But tonight we're just going to transition from one to the other. It's a small baseball slate. And I'm kind of curious because Sheets, you had some good ideas. And I think that this is a really good slate to try to get away from the chalk one way or the other. For me, I ended up with more of the Rodon. But I'm curious where you're at in terms of some of these other stacks that we talked about and if you didn't do anything pitching wise a little bit different.
Yeah. So my top owned pitcher is Rodon, and my top owned stack are the Kansas City Royals. So so there you have it.
Not the same lineups, guys, in case you're new. Not the same lineups.
So there you have it. I think he's the best play, and I think it's very natural leverage, and that's where I'm going. The other thing I'm getting to, the second most highest owned stack, is somebody you kind of just alluded to earlier today, and that would be the White Sox.
Nice.
And the other ones, just again more, and I knew I'd be getting to this, is like Angels, Baltimore. I'm really not getting down to the Dodgers till like the end. Just because of ownership and just because of whatever. And I do have some Dodgers and Cubs, but definitely below the field. It's a very short slate. And last I checked, it's baseball. So that's as far as other pitchers. I really have it all in 5 guys. 40% of Rodon and Festa, and also of Povich, and then Singer and Detmers actually a little bit. So. I didn't get to. I just didn't get to any Bello. Didn't get to any Cantillo. Didn't get to Buehler. But the other guys are pretty well represented.
Yeah, nice. I'm also on the I have 80% Rodon right now. Especially, they scratched Bassett earlier, so that went out the window. I have. It's weird because I do have and then I've sort of just got a mix of everybody else with Rodon, and then a little bit. I have one Cantillo Povich lineup together, but Povich is my second favorite. Then I have Detmers, Festa, Cantillo, Singer, basically all the same though on those guys. And where I'm not playing Detmers, I am stacking. The only team I'm 5-man stacking is Minnesota, and I do have a bunch of 4-3s and 4-2-2s, and I'm playing Dodgers in basically every lineup, but I'm not necessarily. I have between 1 and 4, never 5. And the next highest owned team I have is the Cubs. I actually have one 5-man Cubs stack, so that's what I've got to. I want to take advantage of this. I feel like this line is it's already gone up by basically almost a run today, the Dodger game. And it's, the Cubs run line being as low as it is, I just don't know where they're getting that from, because Buehler has not been right and the Cubs have been really good. But I'm going to be on the side of the Cubs, Dodgers, and primarily the Twins. That's my main team.
I'll tell you this: when I was starting to build lineups, I was gonna, if I didn't make any changes, I'd be leaving just all kinds of money on the table for some reason. So I actually did change that a little bit. I did do a minimum of 49 too, which I don't do too often, but didn't feel comfortable with just leaving. I was leaving 2,000 on the table basically across the board.
Right.
Well, because everybody's so cheap.
Right.
Everybody's so cheap, and if you don't want to play chalk, then you're not playing the expensive guys. So
yeah, except for Judge. Judge is the one expensive guy that's not going to be very popular.
Right.
But yeah, that's right.
I don't know if I have any Judge. Let me just see. What is he, outfield?
Yeah.
Yeah, I only have. I have 9% Judge. So maybe this is the one day he doesn't hit a home run. We'll see what happens.
Well, hey, it hasn't been as hot lately as he was there for a while. He's pretty streaky with the he goes on these runs where he hits like 10 home runs in like 10 games or something.
I do have 25% of the Ohtani though.
Yeah, I'm all over the Ohtani. He's my highest owned hitter. Not a shocker. I basically do the same thing every week, but that's obviously not been a problem this year. Like he doesn't really have that many duds, and he's the best fantasy producer in baseball. So never gonna have an issue with being way overweight Ohtani. And it's pretty straightforward. If anybody has any questions or thoughts, you can jump into it. Otherwise, we can turn. I know Sheets doesn't have as much time tonight. We whenever we're ready, jump over to football. I don't think we have. I mean, Christian McCaffrey still being officially questionable is not a real questionable.
He's playing.
Yeah, it's not a real questionable in my mind.
Wait, are you playing FanDuel baseball at all today?
No, I didn't get over to FanDuel at all, but I did look at it.
I played one lineup on FanDuel, and I sort of have the opposite, but not really. So I have just all the Dodgers and Cubs, and the only way you can do that is with Reed Detmers. So I have that. So
yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah, that's a good thing. Even if Reed Detmers doesn't score that many points, the Dodgers and Cubs can just make up for it.
Absolutely. And the Cubs, I don't expect to be owned just based on their projections. I'm really surprised by this. Like, honestly, if you would have told me this game was being played like this, I would have thought the Cubs would have had a 5+ run line. I just don't understand it. It's just weird. I mean, I don't remember the Dodgers have had like 1 or 2 games that Buehler's pitched in all season that they haven't given up 5 runs. So it just was a little strange. But yeah, it's a small slate, and on FanDuel, like again, the only thing I noticed that was more different was that it was just easy if you wanted to play Judge and Ohtani together, easier than usual, and there's plenty of cheap bats out there. I thought I'd mention some value before we get out of here because I did have I'm not stacking Toronto anywhere, but I have like Will Wagner a bunch because he's a cheap second baseman that I can fit in, Let me just go to my value. Why am I there? There we go. Sorry. And then the other ones, you've got the minimum cost guy for the Angels, Teodoro, Rocio for Cleveland, but he's going to be popular. Farmer is one I ended up using quite a bit because I'm stacking Minnesota. I do feel worried about the stacking Minnesota because I know that like half their lineup is pinch hit risk, but I like the opportunity, and I feel like the bias of Detmers, the way he just pitched in his last game. I believe in Minnesota against lefties. I'm always going to be heavy on them, and I do have the White Sox as a complimentary, like 3 and 4 mans, but just not as my main, not as a full 5 man. That's what I did, and I am mostly 4-3-1 or 4-2-2 today, personally, just because I think it's fine on the slate.
So let's talk about the football. You alluded to you talked about one of the questionables. Let's talk about a couple of the others who, I mean, I don't want to say questionable, but they have possible issues. And that would be Brandon Ayuk and Mike Williams. Just it's not 100% that both of those guys are 100% fit. You know what I mean? So look at it one of 2 ways. Number one, they could be lower owned, but maybe they're not going to get the full workload. No, maybe McCaffrey doesn't also, but I don't know, man. It's a tough game. Yeah, this is a tough game. And if he's healthy, they're gonna play. They're gonna play him. But in the biggest buy-ins, in the biggest entry, biggest amount of entries, certainly nothing wrong with playing some Jordan Mason.
Yes.
Just in case. And the other couple of guys I wanted to mention were other San Francisco receivers. Obviously there's Samuel and whatever, but if and Jennings, but if Ayuk is in fact limited, I mean, you can go down to some of these again just in the lottery, just some cheapos, and those would be what's his name, Ronnie Bell and Chris Conley. They're both, I mean, both like very cheap, and they might get 0 snaps and 0 targets. It's very possible. But for the lottery, I have I'm going to get 10% of each of those guys, just in case. As a matter of fact, just the way my builds worked out, I have 20% of Conley, who legit could not even be wearing a jersey. You know what I mean? But they were using him in preseason. You know what I mean? It's I don't mind that. Just to get a little different.
Yeah, so I actually think that's interesting. I like the idea of being overweight Ayuk, and I'll take shots on Ayuk as a captain just because I think the upside is there. And I'm not very interested in Mike Williams. I'm just gonna believe what they're saying, that he's not gonna play much, a ton. I'm just okay with sort of going away from that. But I like the Jordan Mason speculation quite a bit, actually. Not just because McCaffrey But San Francisco, even when McCaffrey's been there in the past, I mean, they've had good backup running backs, but they have used their backup running backs. The only problem is, will it in fact be Jordan Mason? Because we've seen them do this stuff a lot where they end up throwing other names out there. Also, if McCaffrey, he's banged up, if anything gets re-aggravated, something you have to at least consider in the range of outcomes. So I like being overweight Jordan Mason, but the guy who I'm probably taking the biggest stand on, and because he's the showdown king, I don't know why this is, but it seems like Jawan Jennings every year wins somebody $1 million.
Well, I thought you were going to say use check. Okay.
No. That's what everybody loves to do, but it makes like no sense because he's going to get like one touch. But like the thing is, like we've had, in those games, Jennings was the highest scoring player, honestly.
Right.
I'm a little higher on Jennings, so I know it sounds a little bit like talking out of both sides of my mouth with the Ayuk thing, but Jennings is going to play some anyway, and I think he's an interesting contrarian captain option. Like I really do. I also think Tyler Conklin is a good caption, a reasonable captain option. You look at what these teams do well, and my other one that I'm the most overweight as my captain is Kittle. Look, the one thing that the Jets, even with their awesome defense, had trouble with last year was tight ends. The Niners were great at stopping the run and better at and not as good at the passing game. So I like Garrett Wilson a little more than I like Breece Hall. But in terms of the captain stuff, here's some of the earlier builds I was running, but I ended up with Wilson as a good amount, which is fairly chalky. Right with the field on Purdy, and below on McCaffrey. But I have 10% written in, but I actually have 15% of Jennings as a captain, and I have 20% of Kittle, even though it says 10% on the builds. I did do some hand builds where Kittle was my captain. And then the Ayuk was my other big contrarian one. But Jennings, if that can come through at probably around 1% ownership, and you can get everybody else in, maybe get everybody else in and leave a little extra on the table just because you want to get a little different. But I love the idea of the Jennings thing, especially with all the speculation of, the guys being banged up. Even if McCaffrey's banged up, that could affect him too. So I don't know. I really like the Juwan Jennings play.
Well, let's talk about the Jets a little more, because if Michael Williams is going to be limited or whatever, I mean, we got to talk about the non-Garrett Wilson receivers. So
Conklin was the one I sided with the most, but I hear you. Yeah, Conklin is the one I played the most. I mean, I know he's a tight end, but like that's who I see as I don't know, potentially being the biggest beneficiary. All of the Xavier Gibsons, probably the most logical one would be Gibson. But I don't really know. I don't know. There was nobody else I felt great about. You've got Rucker. Nobody else I felt really great about that I could play. I guess Lazard is one that people have talked about, but it feels like a bunch of guys who could all just get different amounts of minutes. I don't know which one to sort of side with. So I'm sort of stuck on that one a little bit myself.
I mean, I think, I don't know how popular he's going to be, but I think the Lazard play is like a really easy play to make. I don't know if this means anything, but Rodgers played 4 snaps last year. Played 4 snaps. Hasn't played for the Jets yet. He gets his first start against a freaking tough freaking team. I mean, to be able to throw to somebody freaking familiar is to me seems like something they'd probably want to do. So
I agree with that point a lot. Actually, I like that sheet. I think that's something I'll definitely take into account here. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And you touched upon the 2 tight ends, the Rucker and Conklin. A guy that I'm not getting to, but I'll mention just because, listen, you have to mention everybody that's got a projection is this the Conley from the Jets. What is he, 1,200? I didn't play him, but he was getting like a little bit of a projection. Malachi Corley, sorry. And Isaiah Davis. Like, these are 2 guys. Davis is like the 4th string running back, I guess, or something like that.
Yeah.
But these are just 2 guys that have a projection that I'm just not playing.
Right.
So I figured I'd bring those guys up. But what you could do, I mean, similarly, if you were going to play some Jordan Mason, this guy's supposed to be pretty good. The backup to Breece Hall, the Braylon Allen.
Mm-hmm.
So again, in your 100th lineup or something like that, that's not a bad, it's not a bad thing to try. I'm not going to play him in like, any buy-in above the lottery level, but nonetheless,
Mm-hmm.
Kickers, defenses, probably going to be in play here, and specifically, I mean, I'll tell you that like if Jets defense captain wins the slate, no one's allowed to be complaining and surprised.
So I actually manually put in the Jets defense and the Niners defense both as captains. So I've got them at 5%, but not that. Still, I agree with that. No one's.
I mean, Purdy. You know what I mean? Like, you get the Jets in freaking hyper aggro mode. You know what I mean? But Purdy can accommodate this. You know what I mean? If things go the right way. So I mean, if in fact the Jets get like 2 pick sixes, no one's allowed to say, "Oh, here we go again, showdown." This is like actually in play today. You know, these are 2 very aggressive defenses.
Yep.
And you know, you say that Aaron Rodgers is not the type to get rattled, but he hasn't played in 2 years.
He used to not be the type, but who is he now? We don't even know.
I know he hasn't played in 2 years.
Yeah,
and you know, this is a sort of a homecoming, right? I mean, he went to Cal, right? I mean, like this is not an easy spot for him. You know,
no.
So
agreed.
Kickers defenses, I mean, they're in play. I guess the real decision is what you do with these guys that could be limited, like the Ayuk. I think like Ayuk and Mike Williams. I think both of them they're probably going to be lower owned than they otherwise would be because of this. I don't know.
Sorry, I like the Ayuk as the captain specifically for that reason, though, because that's where you can really get leverage on the field against the ownership. He's going to be very low owned as a captain. And it would not be the least bit surprising. I mean, he could catch 2 balls, and that would be enough. I mean, he had the most yards per catch of anybody in the NFL last year. There's no reason why Ayuk wouldn't be the highest scoring player on the slate. So if we're going to play him, I think we got to do a little captaining of him.
One thing I will say also is that you know what's really open for business still. I mean, I'll tell you this. Like I watched the football this weekend. Saw the Kansas City Baltimore game. I saw the Rams game. I saw the Bears. I saw whatever. The best team in football moniker is very open up for debate and up and open for business. You know, nobody was beyond reproach this week. I don't think anybody would come out of this week and say, "Oh my God, XYZ is the best."
I think a lot of people are doing that with Kansas City.
I guess. But that's one possession away from 7 to 6.
Right. But I think there's a lot of podcasts that I've listened to that have been, well, that they just beat the second best team in football. Like, I think there's a lot of people who think that Baltimore's, if not the second best, maybe the third best team. And it is up for debate. I mean,
and I'll tell you something else, man. It's like I know it doesn't feel this way, but we talked about this during the noon thing. If like Jamison Williams is like legitimately like let loose this year, like he was yesterday.
Yeah.
And then you have like a legitimate like Jamison Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Laporta, like receiving core with Goff slinging it around and
Montgomery and Gibbs is probably the second best or third best running back in football.
I mean that's and with the aggressive coaching and the defense. I mean, that's a team, and if that's a team, then the Rams are a team. You know, like this is. And I think that San Francisco, you know, they're going into every freaking season expecting them to the Super Bowl now, and they just can't quite get there. And people are expecting a lot of it. I mean, probably a little bit more of the Jets than I think they're ready to give. You know, I mean, I've heard like Super Bowl takes. I'm like, how about we make the playoffs? You know.
Right.
And step 1 foot forward before proclaiming that you're going to get to the Super Bowl ahead of Kansas City and Baltimore, for example.
Right.
But you know, the Jets are supposed to be improved. But I mean, it's a lot of teams look decent, but nobody really stood out as far as I was concerned. But we'll see.
I think that's fair. I agree with that. Like, I didn't think anybody was like, you know, there was no oh my God moments or anything like that. I think some teams are going to be better than people think. I think Indianapolis is better than people think, and I think that Houston's probably a little worse than people think.
Hey, Cowboys handled Cleveland like pretty easily.
I mean, I can't believe I felt bad for Deshaun Watson. I never thought I would. But his father died like a couple days ago too. Like it's just. And then on top of it, playing one of the worst games in the history of quarterbacking, maybe. It was really hard to watch.
It's kind of hard for me to feel bad for him, unfortunately.
I know. Me too. But it was it was just like with the piling on and the fact that his dad had just died. Like I just felt like, okay, this is a little.
The Eagles looked kind of grim, even though they pulled out that win, didn't they? After all,
yeah, they pulled it out.
They looked.
That was a weird game. The whole surface thing was definitely an issue.
Which thing?
The turf. Everybody was slipping all over the place. It was wild.
The Bears looked just okay. Caleb Williams looked just okay, but it's first game,
Right.
I kind of liked your guy. He took a lot of heat, but I didn't think he was that bad. The Jalen Daniels. I mean, he's just green,
yeah. It's not his fault. Anything that happened there.
I didn't think he was that bad. Giants are just a disaster.
The Giants are in really bad shape, and Sam Darnold looked like the best quarterback in the world for a while in that game. It was wild.
I'll tell you who else who looked like really awful was Atlanta.
Atlanta looked terrible, and Pittsburgh game managed their way to the game.
And Vegas and the Chargers. I mean, the Chargers aren't going to amount to anything again. I mean,
I think the Chargers will be more. I think they'll be competitive because their schedule isn't that bad. But
Seattle looked very 9-7.
Yep.
I'll tell you who looked really. I mean, Carolina is going to be the 2-5. Carolina will have more losses than the Patriots, I think.
Carolina is, and especially if the Patriots got off to their start that they did. What a predictable thing! I'm telling you though, this Bengals thing happens every year. We all have the same conversation. It's happened every year
because they don't care. They think they'll go 1-4 and then no problem.
And it's happened every year that he's been healthy. So I sort of see where they're coming from.
So it's going to be. Listen, it'll be an interesting year. I think that I couldn't imagine. At the end of the day, it's probably going to come down to some variation of Mahomes.
Right.
Adding Xavier Worthy is that's nasty.
It actually felt a little bit unfair.
I mean, you got Worthy and obviously Rashid Rice is like legitimately the number one now, right? So.
Yeah, Rashid Rice is definitely their guy.
Yeah,
but wait till Hollywood Brown gets there too, because he's the fourth fastest guy in football. Like, it's going to be just crazy to see them with that much speed. I mean, who knows if they'll even want it? They have so many other plays they can run behind the line of scrimmage. They don't really need to do that much, but whenever they want it, it's there, man. Mm-hmm. We got Deep Hope who nailed the last time he came in and said. So I'll say what he says. He has the Niners 28-17. Okay.
Let me tell you. I want to tell you something. It's going to be tough to score 28 on the Jets.
It is going to be tough. I bet the under in this game. I picked the just to say what I liked. I actually don't know how I talked myself into it, but I did talk myself into the Jets tonight, and I talked myself into the under. We'll see. I always feel like San Francisco is better as the season goes on. And they're banged up right now, so give Jets a good time.
So I think I have something. All right, so usually, whatever, for as long as I can remember, the team that loses the Super Bowl comes out usually pretty flat to start the season. Mm-hmm. Here's my one stupid bet of the day. Whatever the line is, give me the Jets in the first half.
Okay.
I would not be surprised if before San Francisco wakes up, it's 14-0, and wait, what the hell just happened? And then we have a game. Because the Jets have been just hyped and pumped and doing whatever, and they're ready. They've been waiting for the season since Aaron Rodgers went down, and their defense just kind of totally exploded last year, and Breece Hall just came into his own, and Garrett Wilson came into his own. They've been waiting. This is Aaron Rodgers' shot, and San Francisco's I'm telling you, they're probably coming out of the season. Okay, we'll make the freaking playoffs again. We'll probably get to the championship game. Maybe we'll get lucky and not lose in overtime. Maybe we'll win in overtime, whatever it is. There's no possible way they are completely all wound up for this first game against the Jets. There's just no way.
I totally agree.
We shall see what becomes of that.
Yeah, I agree with literally exactly what you said is exactly what went through my mind when I was deciding earlier. So whether it's right or wrong, it's something that I totally agree with.
One thing I will say though, if you get Jets up 14-0, you do not want to be fading like McCaffrey and the captain.
I know that's the thing that worries me a little bit. But we could see Ayuk, we could see Debo. The problem is the Jets are just their pass defense is so good.
Yeah,
it's just going to be tough. So. I like the double running back thing a little bit. I like the Yeah, I like the Lazard idea. I think that's what I'm going to end up doing actually in this build over here. Let's get some Lazard. Yeah, that makes sense. I think that's the right call. Yeah, let's do Lazard. Why not?
And you're going to see, again, it was hard to see because listen, I'm not a Jets fan, right? It was hard to see because their record was whatever last year. Those two guys, like Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson, they are legit. I mean, they are good. And they remember the Jets had not the remote sense of a quarterback last year,
Right.
And the defense. I mean, listen, defense cannot carry you in the NFL anymore, but they did their best.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
I think most people would tell you that they're the two best running backs in football, Breece Hall and McCaffrey. And I think that Garrett Wilson is a lot of people I've heard who I respect, who know a lot more than I do, seem to think that Garrett Wilson's in the top 3 or 4.
Let me tell you, man, every time I watch Red Zone or watch the NFL nowadays, every time I think I know who the best receiver is, I see these receivers do these things that are just so insane, I don't know where it happened in the last 5-10 years that every receiver now can catch it with one freaking finger, and while getting thrown out with 7 people on him, drag their toes 1 inch inside the line, it's just it's nothing. These guys are just ridiculous, all of them. CeeDee Lamb and we all the guys who went over like the other day. I mean, every one of them.
Tyreek, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, he's just a freaking. I mean, he's just not to say he's bad, but he's just fast. That guy's a freaking lightning bolt. But I just mean the way these guys can work the freaking sideline and that back shoulder throw, which literally didn't exist when I was growing up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's you can't stop it. It's
right.
if you have the quarterback that can throw and a receiver that can run it. It's so all these guys are just these top receivers are just so elite.
Yep. Yeah, I totally agree. All right, I have Lazard now in one of my big buy-ins, so I'm looking forward to this one. We got a couple questions in here, so real quick we can touch on before Sheets gets out of here. Let's see. For GPPs, do we like Lazard plus Kittle or both kickers for last 2 spots? I would play Lazard and Kittle. Lazard and Kittle.
Yeah,
that's where I'm at too. But I think both are viable. I like the Lazard Kittle for sure. I think the fade spot would be Hall and Wilson. They are pricey, but this SF defense and they're at home. Yeah, that's fair enough if you want to take that angle. I think the fades are more the quarterbacks in these situations, and that was my big mistake last night. All I had to do was click the button and play the running back instead of Jared Goff, and boom. Because I had everything, but I couldn't talk myself into the Jared Goff, the Jameson Williams captain, and then leaving Goff off of my list. I just should have done it. I should have just left it out of there. Anyway.
All right, Bobby. I will see you later. Actually, I probably will see you at 12 tomorrow.
Oh, great.
And then, that's it.
All right, man. Have a good night, and I'll see you tomorrow.
Okay.
All right, man. I'm taking a quick look. Kittle crushed the Jets as King of Smack. I like Kittle too. This is the matchup that I think that you try to look for, is that Kittle. This should be a good Kittle game. They just use him so much to block against the heavy pass rush. It's going to be a little bit hard, but I do think they'll design some plays for him specifically. Yeah, and I'm with you, Cam. You've seen me talk about this. I cannot talk to another person trying to make an actual case for Francisco Lindor as MVP. It's absurd. It's insane. And there's just absolutely no base for it whatsoever. The argument should be, why do we ever look at WAR? What is WAR? Why do we even look at it if that's what it's going to be? Same thing with Trout when Cabrera won a Triple Crown. You just don't. You give it to the guy who wins the Triple Crown. That's just what happens, Anyway, give it and the most important player on the best team in baseball, and the team that would not be where they are without Ohtani because they had everybody hurt all year. I just don't even see how we can argue Lindor. And people who want, and look, Bobby Witt versus Judge is a better argument and still insane. Neither one should have it. It should even be in the conversation. We know who the MVPs are. Nothing is going to change it. Yeah, and get out of here. People got to get out of here with this Lindor take. It's the worst take I've seen. And it's so bad. People are so dumb. They don't understand sports that they think they're making some sexy, cool thing. It's the exact opposite. It's a horrible take. And I'll leave it at that. Anyway, I appreciate all you guys. Don't think there's a whole bunch more to go over. We'll see if there's any injuries that we're not expecting. But as of right now, I think we're good to go. We sort of touched on everything that we liked. Good luck to everyone tonight in both baseball and football.